All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Got an awesome show ahead for you guys. Cenk, Uygur, Iadarola, Madison. How you doing, Ira?
I'm great.
All right. Ira does a podcast on Crooked Media. It's called Keep It. So it gives you a sense of what you should do with it. Okay. So Ira, it's pop culture and politics?
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. I like it. I like both those things. We do both those things as well. We used to do a lot more pop culture, not as much anymore. But then we got a pop culture guy who's a president, who's a reality show host. So
yeah, you know.
I don't know. Does that mean your podcast just got taken over by politics?
Sometimes we will not talk about what he's doing.
Okay, what the Orange Man is doing. All right, got you. Okay.
We can just talk about like Chernobyl if you want or something.
Yeah, something more cheery. Something more cheery.
I just started watching Fleabag. We can start talking about that if you want.
Fleabag's great.
It is.
Yeah.
So yeah, people are buzzing about Fleabag. I don't even. Where is it on?
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, it's just very funny.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. Okay, what do we got in the news? We got Mueller. He did a press conference. I've got a lot of opinions. I had so many opinions, I immediately did a YouTube live, but we've got more details for you guys. Nancy Pelosi, you're gonna be shocked. I hope you guys are sitting down. It turns out does not agree with me. It's gotta be a first. So we will get to her diagnosis of this. But speaking of diagnosis, we'll also have some fun, interesting topics for you guys later in the program, and some disastrous ones as usual. We've got in the second hour, we got Living While Black, that apparently now you can't go fishing. All these dangerous things like mowing the lawn, barbecuing, now fishing, etc. But one that might be fun in a weird, obscure way is we're going to discuss / debate whether burnout at work is a real thing. I imagine John is going to take the position that it is. I'm going to take the position that it is not.
Then it turns out you're going to take exactly the position I knew you would take then. So we'll talk about that.
Okay.
If I can make it to that point in the show. Anyway.
Okay, soft. All right, here we go.
Thank you.
All right, now we're gonna have nothing but fun. But all right, let's start with Mueller. Let's see, we should impeach somebody.
Let's do that. Today, for the first time, Robert Mueller has actually spoken publicly about his investigation and about the Mueller report. He did not speak for very long, that's true, but he did speak and he touched on a number of different aspects of the report that some people didn't read. I would say the vast majority of the country, it's fair to say, did not read, and most of the rest of the country has forgotten since it came out. But he touched on a couple important points in terms of conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and all of that. But we start off with conspiracy.
The first volume of the report details numerous efforts emanating from Russia to influence the election. This volume includes a discussion of the Trump campaign's response to this activity, as well as our conclusion that there was insufficient evidence to charge a broader conspiracy.
Just briefly before we jump into the substantive analysis, I do want to just recognize he is speaking for the first time, which we were not expecting. Yesterday on the show, we asked him to. No big deal.
Yeah, I'm not saying we moved Mueller to do that, but I mean, look, we
made a big deal out of it.
Yeah, and then we said we questioned his patriotism because he was putting his pride of like, hey, I don't want to be involved in politics because it would offend my sensibilities, over being truthful to the American public and making it clear. Did we actually move him to? Yeah, no, we didn't. Okay, anyway, but we gave it our best shot, and there he is today. All right, now on to the substance. So. At least I can go home to my dad, by the way. My dad kept saying, why you don't get Robert Mueller to speak right away? Dad, mission accomplished. Okay, okay, so anyways, now onto the substance. This is very important because on two grounds. One, if you thought that he had colluded during the election, here is Bob Mueller saying very clearly insufficient evidence. That doesn't mean that he didn't do it, but it means they wouldn't have tried him. They wouldn't not only have convicted him, they would not have even brought charges against him. So if you were in that camp, I think that you feel pretty vindicated about insufficient evidence on what is really what we've all called collusion during the election, okay? Now that is going to be an important juxtaposition to what he says next.
What were your thoughts, Ira?
Yeah, I wish he had talked earlier. I feel like everyone wants that. This press conference happened. It was like there are all sorts of people looking for press conferences every day. Sarah Huckabee gives one all the time when no one wants to hear her speak. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what you expected, right? If you had read even parts of it, or well, what wasn't redacted, or anyone actually reporting on the actual report, you would know that what Mueller's saying is sort of what we already knew. I think the people who are acting surprised are people who were paying attention to reporting on what people were saying about the report instead of actually listening to what we knew about it.
Or some of them might be a little bit confused because they paid attention to Barr's memo about the report.
Of course.
And just trusted that whatever he put in there would be true. Turned out to not be the case. But nothing there about the conspiracy was anything that we didn't know. He turns in this next clip to obstruction of justice. And here he does reveal something pretty significant that it would have been amazing to know far earlier. We're gonna touch base on that in just a sec, but here he is talking about obstruction of justice.
The order appointing me special counsel authorized us to investigate actions that could obstruct the investigation. And we conducted that investigation, and we kept the office of the acting attorney general apprised of the progress of our work. And as set forth in the report, after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime. The introduction to the volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Even if the charge is kept under seal and hidden from public view, that too is prohibited. The special counsel's office is part of the Department of Justice, and by regulation, it was bound by that department policy. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider.
You could have considered saying that a year and a half ago, I think. It seems, I mean, there'd been debate along the way about how seriously he would take that memo. There, he referred to the content of the memo or the decision as determining constitutionality, which is, I would say, a very serious attachment to that.
Explicitly.
Mueller, you finally talk, and now he just wants to cut in on everything. Anyway, so there, he's taking it so seriously that he's saying it would be unconstitutional to levy charges against the president, which I don't believe that the constitutionality of that has ever been tested. I wouldn't necessarily want this Supreme Court to do it. But there were never going to be charges. There could never have been charges. Why was that not stated a year ago publicly?
Yeah, so I want to touch on that too, but I don't want to lose track of the money quote here. He said in that clip that you just watched, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Now, so he's saying on the collusion and what he calls conspiracy, because that's the legal word for it, insufficient evidence. On obstruction, if we had insufficient evidence, I would tell you. What does that mean? That means he has sufficient evidence. So why is he not charging him if he has sufficient evidence? One is what John just referred to, which is that he thinks he's not allowed to charge a sitting president. Okay, we're gonna get to the implication of that in a second. The second reason is he says, even if I thought that he should be charged if he weren't the sitting president, I couldn't tell you that because that would bias people against the president who would not get a chance to necessarily defend himself in court because we can't charge him. Now, if you're following along logically, that's very clear, completely easy to understand, especially if you're a lawyer. He's saying, yeah, he definitely did it. I'm just not legally allowed to charge him. I'll tell you who is in a second, right? But unfortunately, not everybody's a lawyer, and not everybody clearly understands that. And it allows for the Republicans and Donald Trump to obfuscate. So he says, I'm not charging him on this. On this one, I'm not saying anything because I'm not allowed to say anything, but here's 11 instances of him obstructing justice. So the Trump people come out and go, see, case closed. Literally, that's what Trump said. Case closed, obviously he didn't do it. No! And to John's point about framing, why didn't we have a discussion throughout that Mueller was never going to charge Trump? The question was, and that since he thinks that Department of Justice cannot charge Trump, what is the only body that actually can bring Trump or any president to justice if they break the law? Congress. So the entire time that Mueller was deliberating, we should have been having a conversation about, will Mueller give enough evidence for Congress to impeach Donald Trump? So now in the Mueller report, and we told you this when it came out, it says the correct next government body to act is Congress. So now we'll get to Pelosi and how she punted and she won't do her job and a total dereliction of duty. But here, I want the audience to be at least crystal clear. This is basically Mueller coming out and saying what Rashida Tlaib said: impeach the mother. Okay, he's saying it's not my job, it's Congress's job. And I just told you broke the law 11 times on obstruction of charges, obstruction of justice. If you're paying attention, crystal clear. If you're trying to confuse the issue, then then he gave you plenty of room to go, well, hey, he didn't say he's charging him. Ha ha. So what's your take on it, Iyer?
I mean, so this is sort of the problem with a lot of politics right now, and the why so many people get frustrated with them. Because as you said, a lawyer hearing that would say, oh, okay, I totally get this. But for most people listening at home, they have been hearing about the Mueller report for like ever. And you're like, this is going to be the report that says whether or not the president committed a crime, we're gonna find out the truth. What is actually happening is the fact that no one seems to want to deal with the fact, even the media wants to deal with the fact that Republicans know that most people want to still play with a level playing field when it comes to politics. And so with Mueller just doing his job, Barr and other people, everyone who's sort of in Trump's land can come out and they can spin it to, so there's no collusion, and part of it too is just, I feel like framing so much of this as, are we finding out about collusion? Because I feel like one of the largest parts about this is the obstruction of justice, and that's what we should really be going after for impeachment.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not going to go through all of the instances of obstruction of justice, which are very clear in the Mueller report, and you should have already read it at this point. But again, there's no definition of obstruction of justice that means anything that he hasn't violated at this point. Like if he is allowed to get away with the things that he got away with and it does not count as obstruction of justice, there can never be an investigation of a president that's meaningful in the future because they can just fire everyone involved with it. They can not testify themselves. They can tamper with witnesses, threaten witnesses, dangle pardons in front of witnesses. All of the stereotypical, most obvious instances of obstruction of justice. He did that. That is why we got to this point where Robert Mueller is winking and nodding at the fact that Congress needs to step in. But he does, in his remarks, go a little bit more into the DOJ policy on charging and which body would actually pursue the next step in this clip.
First, the opinion explicitly permits the investigation of a sitting president because it is important to preserve evidence while memories are fresh and documents available. Among other things, that evidence could be used if there were co-conspirators who could be charged now. And second, the opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing. And beyond department policy, we were guided by principles of fairness. It would be unfair to potentially accuse somebody of a crime when there can be no court resolution of the actual charge.
So he's obviously saying there, he did it. I'm not allowed to charge him, and I think it'd be unfair to say he did it without charging him because he wouldn't be able to defend himself. But that's obvious to anyone who's logical and paying attention. But so what he's not being fair to is the American people. The American people thought he was gonna come out and say, did he do it or didn't he do it, as Ira pointed out earlier, right? And Mueller says, well, look, I wanna preserve my reputation and I don't want to be attacked by Democrats or Republicans. So I'll do this punting thing where I'll say, look, I gave you 11 cases where he clearly violated the law. And so it's up to you now and I'm not gonna interpret it for you. Well, I wish the American people were that sufficiently logical and understood exactly what's happening. If you watch the Young Turks, you do. If you saw it there and you see the explanation, it's clear as day. But one of the things that is true of American media today that apparently Mueller does not understand enough or doesn't care about is, I was talking to another reporter today and I said, well, obviously he said clearly he implied that he did it. He said, well, you can't say that. You can't say that. No, but wait a minute, you're being unfair to the truth. The truth is he laid out 11 instances where he obstructed justice and says, I can't charge him for it, but and I'm not gonna tell you whether somebody should act on it, but I'm telling you that when I find insufficient evidence, I tell you. And here, I'm not telling you that. God damn it, it's so clear, except the way that Mueller stated it doesn't allow the neutral reporters who are not attached to reality and facts to go, hey man, nothing I can do about it. Nothing I can do about it. Which then the bad guys like Trump, et cetera, jump in and go, I'm cleared.
Yeah.
When he's actually saying the exact opposite.
You know what, it reminds me a lot of recently, we had that whole Jussie Smollett thing in Chicago, right? And a lot of the reason why the special prosecutor in Chicago dropped those charges was just because it would have been hard to prove that case in the public opinion after you basically had Rahm Emanuel and like the head of the police in Chicago going on news programs and basically saying he's guilty, without providing any sort of evidence, And I think that's basically where Mueller is now. You can't legally sort of taint, public opinion. Otherwise it's gonna turn back against you.
Yeah.
So I hear you on that. That's I think what he's referring to when he says it wouldn't be fair, right? On the other hand, it's also not fair to leave the issue in any way unclear. We had you work on it for 2 years so you can clear it up, not so you can make it less clear. And so, look, again, no honest person that actually understands the issues would come away from that thinking that he was cleared on obstruction. They would think the exact opposite. And no one, if anyone says that he's exonerated on obstruction, that's a clear lie.
Yeah.
Flat out lie, and there's no dispute about that.
And just a couple last points to make of this. One, another reason that it's convenient that he is speaking today, and we just had our conversation yesterday, is that we went into whether that Office of Legal Counsel guideline was directing Mueller, and we speculated that it was pretty clear from the Mueller report that Barr's statements that it had nothing to do with it were a lie, that we now knew that. And today, I mean, you saw the videos, that was borne out today, that Barr had been lying about the fact that he was saying, no, the Office of Legal Counsel guideline has nothing to do with it. Even if that wasn't there, Mueller still would not have pressed any charges against Donald Trump. And this again, I mean, this is like the 7th time he's been proven to be a liar on the subject, but the people who came out immediately after the Barr memo came out and decided, I'm gonna tie my reputation to that guy's reputation and imply that anyone that besmirches him is clearly crazy because of his amazing reputation in Washington, just looks more and more ridiculous as the days go by.
I'm referring to William Barr.
Exactly. And one other thing too, just to bear in mind, like we're gonna speculate, I think after the break about what we do, where we go from here. But in terms of where Mueller goes from here, he's going from here, actually. He's resigned from the Justice Department. And in terms of him like testifying, whether publicly or privately, what can you expect from that? Well, he said, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak about this matter. I am making that decision myself. No one has told me whether I can or should testify or speak further about this matter. And he also says that even if he does testify, he will not go beyond anything that is revealed in the Mueller report. So from the point of view of Robert Mueller, while there might still be value to him speaking, it will not be in terms of revealing new information to us.
Okay, I mean, first of all, he doesn't get to decide that. If the House subpoenas you, you must comply with the subpoena. So that's a sad day for you that you'd rather be fishing and again, preserving your precious reputation according to your interpretation, right? But if you get a legal subpoena, you're a lawyer, you figure it out. You have to respond to it.
Not if you're Hope Hicks.
Exactly.
But Mueller is not in
the question.
Yeah, Mueller's not part of the Trump team. So he, if he says, "Oh, Trump told me not to do it," I mean, then you lose all respect for him. And I'm not. Look, there's nothing wrong with his investigation. And his conclusion is clearly that the president did obstruction of justice, which is a very serious felony. It's just the only issues are with the framing. If he allowed for questions, which he didn't, perhaps the most relevant question would have been what he said in the report, but he'd like to have it be clarified in that press conference that everybody was paying attention to. So if the Department of Justice cannot act and a president has committed a crime, who should act? And there's a very clear answer to that, Congress. Because you can't say nobody can act. What if the president came out on 5th Avenue and shot someone and killed him and said, haha, I'm a president. The Department of Justice cannot indict a sitting president. Mueller just told you it's unconstitutional. So I get to, you know what? Somebody else step up. I'm gonna kill the next guy because I'm totally above the law. Well, Mueller would say if you asked him about that, well, no, there is someone who could act. Who is it? Congress. So, which then leads to Nancy Pelosi. We'll talk more about it later in the program, but I'll tell you right now, when Nancy Pelosi says she's not going to act, she's saying, I'm putting politics over rule of law, over principle, and I'm gonna let him slide. I'm gonna let the criminal go. And so at this point, Mueller has made it crystal clear. Next stop, Nancy Pelosi. Ball's in our court, and today, one more time, she said, no, I won't do it. And so the resistance has totally turned into the assistance. So maybe she should apply to work at the White House. I've got more anger about that a little bit later in the program. So let's take a break. Let's talk about her. We'll talk about the Fox guys. Yeah, I mean, look, it's so clear. A lot of the Fox guys are like, yeah, he did it, right? So we'll show you the tape and you'll see for yourself. So come right back. We'll do that next. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Lots of comments for you guys and lots of updates. So first of all, Jordan Klepper is going to be on the show on Thursday, so don't miss that. And we also are going to have a conservative on who thinks we should do impeachment. We're going to have a lot of guests on Thursday. And Dahlia Lithwick, who is one of the top legal reporters in the country, she also thinks there should be impeachment. Everybody except Nancy Pelosi thinks there should be impeachment. Okay, Shop TYT, by the way, has got some sort of thing for you guys. How's that for a tease? Okay, so Pride Month's 2 days away. That's why we've got the rainbow TYTs going for you guys. I have the one on the left at home, shoptyt.com. So the reason I pause is I don't know if there's a sale. You don't need a sale. Go to shoptyt.com. Show pride, okay?
I haven't seen that right one. That might be new.
Yeah, I think the right one, the one on the right is new. Okay, so now let's go to your member comments. Eclectic Miscellaneous says, how many minutes into the show will it be until Cenk says tick, 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 tick? My guess is 6 minutes and 30 seconds. You are way off, no, but fair enough guess. No Way says, I think Mueller is hiding behind policy. This just seems like buck passing to me. Michael Rose says, hey, the TYT app now has airplay and casting, woo! Woo indeed. You're right, you can do airplay, you can do casting. We're all over your TV. We're on Pluto, Zumo, Roku, or you can just take the TYT version, tyt.com, and aircast it, or I just said aircast it, airplay it or cast it. And apparently this is what you do when you do that. I've become my dad. You can go on internet or aircast. Anyway, Alexis says, Ira on TYT, I'm legitimately screaming, this is my dream team. Oh, that's very nice.
Hi, Alexa.
Okay. All right, I get a lot more, but we gotta go. So, I'll give you one last one. On Twitter, Melinda goes, Ira! That's what she wrote.
I don't think that was about us. I think that was about Trump tweets effects on the stock market.
Yeah, well, that also actually happened. Anyway, all right, what's next?
Trump, unfortunately. So with Robert Mueller finally speaking about his investigation, we turn now to one of the key people in the investigation, Donald Trump. What did he think about the appearance today? He said nothing changes from the Mueller report. There was insufficient evidence, and therefore, in our country, a person is innocent. The case is closed. Thank you. I agree with him. Nothing changes from the Mueller report. Please read the Mueller report.
All right, so let's go through the usual stuff. First of all, for 2 years, Donald Trump said, witch hunt! 18, 19, 17 angry Democrats, whatever number he was making up that day. Then he comes out and says, full exoneration. The witch hunt, and which happens with witch hunts all the time. They'd get together, they'd say, okay, you're a witch, right? And they'd bring the jury together, they'd be like, oh my God, they're not witches, no, none of them are witches. Okay, that's not really how witch hunts work. So he claimed total exoneration. Today, we have this sleight of hand. Insufficient evidence means that you don't charge somebody, ha ha. By the way, he's not even saying that he didn't do it. He's just like, insufficient evidence, got you.
In our country, a person is innocent.
Right, in our country, a person is innocent. Not in reality, okay. But that's a great point,
He's talking about his own case ending as if he's the beginning to a Law and Order episode. He has no personal attachment.
Right, but the main lie in there, of course, is he said insufficient evidence on collusion. He did not say insufficient evidence on obstruction.
Yeah.
He said plenty of evidence on obstruction. So nice try.
So he obviously doesn't think that this appearance should be like the prologue to impeachment proceedings, but there are people on Twitter who do think so. You might recognize some of them from currently starring in the Democratic primary contest. That's a bunch of them. And so we've got Seth Moulton and Kirsten Gillibrand and Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren and Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro and Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg. I'm not sure if any of the others have yet tweeted specifically about it. We tried to get all of them, but that's 7 of the 62 candidates. So, it's getting up there. It's become a more popular position. They're less scared of it. When Elizabeth Warren, not too long ago, was vocally in favor, I believe at a town hall in favor of impeachment, it was considered kind of out there, and others have now caught up to her, as well as some who are not running for president. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had tweeted, Mueller is playing a game of taboo with Congress. His word is impeach.
You're looking for the word impeach.
That tweet is just made specifically for me. But anyway, yeah, and so that's sort of what we were getting into in the last block, that he can't specifically say exactly what has happened and what needs to happen, but if you are paying attention, if you have a functioning brain, it's pretty clear what's going on here.
And of course, Justin Amash has said the ball's in our court, Congress. And Justin Amash is a right-wing Republican congressman who has said, who are we kidding? The Mueller report clearly lays out crimes. He's got 11 cases of obstruction of justice. What did you need? 12 cases, right? So all reasonable and even some unreasonable people agree. And the only ones who are holding out, of course, are the Trump guys. And and Nancy Pelosi. What do you think? Is she going for vice president of Trump or Secretary of State? What does she want? Or just assistant? What do you think Pelosi's going for here? But now the presidential candidates are fairly clear. It took them long enough. I mean, why did Mueller have to say it? It was in the report. Why? That's why I give Elizabeth Warren credit for leading the charge.
Some of them had, and last night's town hall, I mean, she was just asked about it. Kamala Harris also was in favor of beginning proceedings.
Yes, look, and there's layers to it. And so I would say in this category, Elizabeth Warren is the best because she said, look, it's a matter of principle. I don't care what the politics is. So that she had the right reason. She was the most aggressive about it, the most correct about it. And then people like Kamala Harris and actually Julian Castro is very aggressive about it too. I really liked a lot of what he said about it, and he had very good reasoning to back it up. And you can tell who's hedging and being careful and who's being more aggressive. So great credit to Castro. And then you get to the other end, and Biden goes, I'm with Pelosi, man. I don't even want to do anything. If I get in office for 4 years, I'm not going to do a damn thing, right? So that's Biden in a nutshell. But to be fair, Bernie Sanders has been mediocre on this issue. So he's like, well, if this, if that, then we should do impeachment. I don't think it's a, look, if Bernie Sanders said, hey, I'm too busy passing Medicare for all and Green New Deal and all these things that I don't have time for impeaching Trump, and he's in the Senate, so they could be working on that stuff, that would be one thing, and he would have credibility in that grounds, whereas Pelosi does not. But they're not doing that either. So they're not doing it in the House, they're not doing it in the Senate. So you got all the time in the world. So I don't love Sanders' position on this. He's barely getting there now.
Yeah.
Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that even the people on Trump's side are sort of playing the media game. When Sarah Sanders made her statement, she says that there's no collusion and there's no conspiracy. But when she talks about obstruction, she says the Department of Justice agrees that there's no obstruction. So like she's throwing it back to Barr again, and it's once again, this idea that if someone's gonna do something, you just sort of have to do something. And what confuses me the most is when you talk about like Nancy Pelosi or something, like sort of what politics they may be playing about, can we go for impeachment or can we not go for impeachment? It seems like from most polls that keep coming out, most of the American public would be in favor of impeachment. And you have most of the 2020 candidates in favor of it. So I just don't get the hedging. I don't get what they're afraid could happen if impeachment proceedings again.
And we can't say for sure, like we have an idea from polling of what the American people think, but we don't have an idea of what the American people think when the Democratic Party and its leadership have been unified in making the case to them, because we haven't seen that yet. We have to speculate.
Yeah. But imagine the Democratic Party being unified.
Yeah.
Yeah, and imagine the Democratic Party actually fighting for you. I know it seems unimaginable. And actually making their own case rather than Trump's case. Unthinkable. All right, so now let's turn to them.
Yeah, so, well, and others around them. What Mueller was saying this morning was fairly clear. Clear not just to people on the left, but people on the right as well, including on Fox News. Bret Baier had this to say.
By the tone and tenor of those remarks, as he laid out his case, wrapping up this report, this was not, as the president says time and time again, no collusion, no obstruction. It was much more nuanced than that.
I haven't watched any other Fox News today. I'll just imagine that on through to Sean Hannity, they agree with him.
No, but Napolitano, as usual, came out and was clear. Again, look, guys, don't get confused Napolitano for anybody's liberal or progressive. And so he's been saying a lot of things drive me crazy lately. That's because we're two Americans who disagree. That's the way it's supposed to be, okay? But on this issue, we do agree. And he said, well, Mueller said that there was evidence that he did obstruction. It's like, well, what else do you need? He said there's no evidence or not enough evidence on collusion, but plenty of evidence on obstruction. So you've got a couple people on Fox News going, look, guys, I don't know, I can't. There's a bridge too far, right? I can't twist his words to mean the exact opposite. So I'm gonna tell you what he actually said. So we'll have to see tonight. But you know what Hannity's gonna say and Lou Dobbs. Lou Dobbs is gonna say, arrest them all. Who, Trump? The guys who committed the crimes? No, the people who pointed out the crimes. But literally that's what they say.
Yeah.
And they're now starting investigations. And we'll see if Trump's team, Trump has told William Barr to start investigations on everyone who investigated him. I'm sure that they'll be just as careful as Robert Mueller. And then once they have information, they'll be just like Nancy Pelosi and say, well, but I don't know, how's it gonna play out? I just wanna be careful, so I probably won't do anything. Or with almost no evidence, they'll barge in and start to lock people up. So the disparity here is out of control. But for the moment being, the important takeaway from this is whether it's Justin Amash, Bret Baier, Napolitano, even the right wing, and Baier, all those guys are a million miles from progressive, a million miles from moderate. Even those guys are saying, yeah, he obviously did it.
Yeah. And so why don't we play a game now? Okay. So we're gonna see how strong you can seem like you're being without actually promising to do anything. And the first contestant is going to be Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Gerald Nadler. And so here's what he had to say today.
With respect to impeachment question, at this point, all options are on the table and nothing should be ruled out. What Special Counsel Mueller said loud and clear today for the American people is that President Trump is lying when he says no collusion, no obstruction, and that he was exonerated. If Mueller wanted to exonerate the president from having committed the crime, he would have said so. Instead, and he says he would have said so.
With regards to impeachment, will you then move forward at a particular time? You say it's on the table, but what exactly does that mean specifically?
We are following through in our investigation. We will continue to do so, and we'll make decisions as they seem indicated.
Okay.
Yeah, we're following procedure. We're gonna keep to the timeline, and we expect it will conclude sometime after the sun has expanded in size and consumed the earth.
Yeah. So about 7.5 billion years.
Something like that.
Yeah. So look, reporting from people inside, and sometimes literally Democratic congressmen will go on TV, like Steve Cohen did, and say the overwhelming majority of the Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee want to impeach. They think the obvious is that the evidence is obvious, and that if we don't act, it'll seem like we're letting the president be above the law. I think that Nadler, based on the reporting I've seen, actually agrees with that. But Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House, will not let anyone take action, will not let anyone actually be a Democrat, will not let anyone oppose Trump. Remember when he was called the resistance? Hilarious, hilarious. So now it's the assistance, of course, and Nadler here has to go up there and go, Trump obviously did it, he was lying about not doing it, and Pelosi tells me I have to do nothing but wait. And so that's what you just saw there. So let's go to the chief assistant for Donald Trump, Nancy Pelosi, and let's see what she has to say.
Let me just say that I'm very proud of our House Democrats. They've been very, shall we say, conscientious about how they've reached their decisions, and I think it's like 35 of them out of 238 or maybe it's 38 of them out of 238 have said that they wanted to be outspoken on impeachment, and many of them are reflecting their views as well as those of their constituents. Many constituents want to impeach the president, but we want to do what is right and what gets results. What gets results. And we have to remember, so yes, there are some, and the press makes more of a fuss about the 38 than the 200.
Okay, so first of all, if she's telling the truth, okay, fine, there's 200 of them who want to help Donald Trump, who say, let's cover up Donald Trump's crimes. So Nancy Pelosi, if she's correct, then she just threw her whole, most of her Democratic colleagues under a bus. Another set of group of people that she threw under a bus was her voters. She said, oh, my voters want to impeach, but we have to do what's right. You understand the words that you just used? You said, oh, like my idiot, rabble-rousing voters who I basically despise want to impeach, but I'm not going to listen to them. I'm going to do what's right. So you framed it as not only are your voters wrong, but they're almost immoral, and that the bastion of morality is Donald Trump, because you will not impeach him because that is the right thing to do. That is as bad as you could possibly imagine. I mean, the leader of the Republicans couldn't do more damage to the Democratic Party than Nancy Pelosi just did. And she also says, I'm gonna do what gets results. What results? On what? What are you doing? She always says like, oh, I've got other priorities. Really? You're against Medicare for all, you're against Green New Deal, you couldn't even get $15 minimum wage passed. I thought you were a master legislator, what the hell's going on? You got plenty of time on your hands. What are you doing if you're not doing impeachment? Go ahead, we'll wait. Apparently we'll wait a long, long time. You're not doing anything otherwise anyway. This is at best cowardice, at best. All right, that's my thoughts. Over to you, Ira.
Well, I mean, I thought the magenta outfit was lovely. I think that for Pelosi, when she's thinking about what will get, these quote unquote results, she's probably thinking, about 2020, probably thinking about, the Senate, probably thinking about who's running for president, and I feel like she just thinks that impeachment now probably will throw a lot of that into disarray. And I get it, sometimes people don't want to, throw a lot of plans that they might have laid out into chaos by, sort of introducing something new to it. But, when you have people like Elizabeth Warren who, I strongly agree with and think is doing so many amazing things right, talking about how she doesn't care politically what happens, we should move forward with impeachment. I think those are people who we should be listening to.
Yeah. So look, I want to address a couple of quick points that the Pelosi team makes. One is they believe that it's the 1990s. It is not. I just wanted to correct that for the record. They believe that Donald Trump is just like Bill Clinton. He's not. They're two different human beings. I'd like to correct that for the record. Bill Clinton at the time was incredibly popular. Donald Trump is incredibly unpopular. So your sense of time and politics is miserable. You don't really know what you're doing. I mean, to go back to a cliche thing of like, oh, and impeachment didn't work for the Republicans in the 1990s when they did it based on absolutely nothing against an incredibly popular president. Oops. So you don't know anything. So let's move on past that. Number two is, she says, oh, well, the Senate, this is the number one thing they do. The Senate won't convict, so what's the point? The point is that you do your job and then you worry about whether they do their job. And by the way, when you have impeachment proceedings in the House, the whole country will see all the evidence. The 11 times that he obstructed justice according to the Mueller report, do the American people know about that? Almost not at all. Why? Because you never brought it up. You never talk about it. Maybe, I know this is absolutely unthinkable to Nancy Pelosi. Maybe if you made your own case, the reality is, of course, she does. She represents the corporate donors. She's making their case. Hey, I got the tax cuts already. Trump's awesome. And I'm raising a lot of money if I'm a Democrat off of Donald Trump. That's what this is about. Anyway, but if you actually made the Democratic case, you'd have a better shot. Then the American people go, oh, I see. Right now they say Trump they see Trump going, I'm innocent, case closed. They see Pelosi saying, hey, the right thing to do is not to impeach Donald Trump. What do you think they're gonna conclude?
Yeah.
Or what if you said, hey, you know what, Donald Trump is wrong, this was a crime, and we're going to investigate it, and we're going to, and make sure that there are consequences attached to it, then perhaps your side would have a fighting chance. But you don't want them to have a fighting chance because you're a natural born loser. And then Washington tells me that Pelosi's a master legislator. Is this what a master legislator does? Just lies down like a floor mat for Donald frickin' Trump? It's not like we're dealing with FDR here. It's not like, or even Reagan, I got no respect for him, but at least he was in his time popular and had some degree of strength. Donald Trump is the weakest, saddest, most pathetic, most unpopular president we've ever had in our lifetimes, and you're still laying down for him. That's unbelievable. And the Senate, you know what would happen? The Republicans would then be put to a decision. And the decision would be one of two things. Either I'm going to say, in the face of overwhelming evidence, I vote no, I vote in favor of criminality. I want to let the criminal go. And then they're on the record on that, Nancy. Did you think about that? Did you think, hey, maybe that might hurt their chances in their state? Or they're going to convict, but you leave that up to them. What's the point of saying, oh, I surrender to the Republicans in the Senate, I surrender? Where the is the master legislator that I hear these idiot mainstream media guys constantly talking about? Oh, she's so amazing. Really? Really? Lying down to Trump, kneeling, bending a knee to Trump is amazing? That's the master legislator? Okay, and the most important part of all this, guys, is precedent. If Nancy Pelosi says, under no circumstances, which is exactly what she's saying now, are we going to pursue impeachment? Here's Mueller, did 2 years of work, gives me 11 counts of obstruction, and I say no. That means the president is above the law. And not only any president, which is a horrible, horrible precedent to set, but you don't have to think about this outlandish scenario where we have a monstrous president who wants to do wildly illegal things and doesn't believe in our democracy. He's in office right now. That's the guy you're letting get away with it, okay? So if Pelosi says no impeachment, what's to stop Trump from breaking more laws? He just got a get out of jail free card forever. Imagine if Pelosi's wrong and they don't win the election and Trump wins again. What is he gonna do in the next 5.5 years, not just 1.5 years? He's gonna say, well, the Democrats told me I could break any law I like. And then they can appoint a special counsel. What difference does it make? The special counsel is gonna say you can't indict a sitting president, and Nancy Pelosi is going to do a preemptive surrender. I could shoot somebody on 5th Avenue and get away with it, and that's not my supporters saying it, that's Nancy Pelosi saying it. And that's just what happened today.
Let's take a break.
All right, we'll be back. I didn't know I was gonna get that angry about it, but I did. And so we'll take a break, we'll come back, and I'll have more righteous rage.